just go off and just start smoking space spliffs somewhere.
Okay. Well, I like to think she did. Welcome to the Idiot's Odyssey, episode 6. I'm Eoin Murphy.
I'm Fergal O'Connor.
And tonight we'll be discussing the news and our own review of Ex-Machina. Felicity Jones has been cast in the Gareth Edwards directed Star Wars standalone film.
Marvel regard James Gunn's concept for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as risky. Jennifer Lawrence is in talks to join sci-fi drama Passengers for Sony.
Bryan Cranston is in talks to join Star Trek 3, and the film will also have 3 new major female characters.
Rose Byrne will be reprising her role as Moira MacTaggart in X-Men Apocalypse. The Money Men at Lionsgate have finally confirmed that they're working on a John Wick sequel.
The Stargate reboot has found its new writers, and it's the Independence Day 2 writers. For the near future, movies can still be called films.
And we're all about to be transported into an alternate dimension where Harper Lee actually releases a sequel to Kill a Mockingbird. Hollywood refuses to stop touching my childhood, this time with Netflix developing a Legend of Zelda live-action series. Keanu Reeves and Christina Hendricks have joined the cast of Nicholas Winding Refn's The Neon Demon. Seth Rogen and everyone's favourite teen idol Zac Efron are re-teaming to do a sequel to Neighbours. And disappointment amongst the housewives of Nation as 50 Shades of Grey will only contain 20 minutes of sex scenes. But, in good news for them, they did get a new trailer for 50 Shades of Grey this week.
The Walking Dead revealed a 2-minute sneak peek. Trailers were released for Magic Mike XXL, Marvel and Netflix's Daredevil, and the new Fast and Furious 7 trailer was also released. Steve Jobs movie and the Point Break reboot have been given release dates. NBC have renewed 5 shows.
And Rooster Teeth animator Monty Ohm has passed away at the age of 33.
Kicking us off on episode 6 anyway, Felicity Jones has been cast in the Star Wars spin-off. What do you think? Or the standalone, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, bad film critic confession time. I haven't seen the theory of everything yet. So the only reference point I have for Felicity Jones is Chalet Girl. And she was good in that, I guess.
Well, this is definitely going to be the one directed by Gareth Edwards. It's the first one, and it's going to have Felicity Jones.
Yeah,
now,
well,
we don't really have any details on it, in terms of characters or anything.
Not really, although, that being said, Felicity Jones does have kind of a Princess Leia look about her.
So you're thinking an origin story, or like what she did in 30 years or something?
Well, it's just the fact that there have been rumours of it being bandied about already about these being Han Solo and Princess Leia origin stories, and putting them together with the way Felicity Jones looks, I could see an argument
to be honest,
being put together.
I think it's a stretch, because what's the point of that? I mean, you're just going to need this backwaters and stuff.
Well, I assume these characters are going to have backstory. I assume that.
But as in Princess Leia had a backstory. Why would you give another 30 years of backstory to what she already had?
Because she is going to have 30 years of backstory.
I don't know. Would it be that interesting?
I assume she didn't just go off and just start smoking space spliffs somewhere.
Okay. Well, I like to think she did. Maybe, who knows? But the thing is that it's standalone, but it's not really standalone. Then because it leads too directly into anything.
Yeah, I can see that. But at the same time, it's just showing the character was doing all this mad stuff.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. So that's that. Felicity Jones will be in the Star Wars standalone anyway. We know that for sure. Who she be playing? That's up to question.
Now, James Gunn was a guest on Alison Rosen's podcast this week, and he said of Marvel's reaction to his approach to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that they just looked at him and said, "Whoa, that's risky." Apparently, Gunn is stepping completely away from the comic book material this time and writing his own standalone story that he started writing while he was producing and directing Guardians 1.
Oh, okay.
Now, apparently, whoever Peter Quill's father was in the comics, in any case, and there are probably some very angry comic book fans out there right now at me, it's not going to be whoever that is.
Yeah, I've heard this one before, but apparently in the comics is his father was a bit of an ass, like.
Yeah.
As in, he's portrayed as a very arrogant, superpowered being, like.
Yeah, which I can see kind of working. I mean, there is that element to the character if you think about it. I mean, he does have a certain dark side to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's a thief. I mean, like, he's not running around, like, feeding starving babies and that sort of thing.
We don't know what he does in his spare time for charity.
Are you? I am not putting bets on it being him raising starving babies.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's like, there isn't the interesting idea that you could explore of this just because he came from this asshole doesn't necessarily mean that he will grow up to be a complete asshole, because you also have decided the character who saves the universe at the end
Nature
of
versus
Guardians
nurture.
by... Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it could be an interesting approach, but apparently James Gunn has his own thing, so I don't know why I'm waffling on this. But I think the more interesting point is just that he's stepping away from the comic book material and writing his own standalone story. Which, given the way that he develops episodes...
When they say it's standalone, now what exactly... As in, it's not going to be connected to the rest of the Marvel Universe?
Well, no, not necessarily that, but it'll stand distinct from the comics. Like this
okay,
it won't be comic derived.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Which, it seems like a more interesting approach. Although, I guarantee he is probably going to get a few angry letters that are kind of sneered in nacho cheese.
No doubt.
In casting news, Jennifer Lawrence is in talks for the sci-fi drama Passengers under Sony's banner. The story is set on a spacecraft in the future, with thousands of passengers making an interstellar voyage to a distant new planet. One passenger awakes from cryogenic sleep 90 years before everyone else, and he decides to wake up a female passenger, sparking the beginning of a love story. As you do.
Well, that's interesting anyway. Who's going to be playing the male lead?
Yeah, I thought for a second we might be able to get away from Chris Pratt's stories, but after I'd read the story, Variety updated, and Chris Pratt is in early talks for the male lead.
Of course he is, but in fairness, if this is going to not attract a shit ton of people to it, I don't know what will. I mean, you got Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. That's just...
I like Hollywood's basically printing money with this one.
Yeah. So who's in line to direct it?
They got a good one. They got Martin Tilden, who directed The Imitation Game last year.
Oh.
Yeah. So, it's a solid purported cast. A director who I basically believe in, and the concept sounds pretty fun. So,
yeah, it sounds like a cool concept to know.
Yeah, so whenever that one shows up in cinemas, I guess I'll be checking in on it.
News has emerged that Bryan Cranston is in talks with Star Trek 3 to join the cast in a big way. What do you think of this, Ferg? Because this sounds like, I mean, you gotta love the way that they're going with this. It sounds like they're really trying to take this seriously, and like, I'm looking forward to this myself. Of course, I look forward to Bryan Cranston in anything, to be fair.
Yeah, that's pretty much my reaction to this. It's just a piece of good stuff casting. It doesn't feel inspired or anything, but it just
not
feels
overly inspired.
like,
No, but it is a good idea.
Yeah, they're just taking the best tool for the job and the best tool for any sort of large charisma role. Like if you need a villain, let's say,
yeah, exactly,
who's going to immediately ingratiate the audience and make them hate them at the same time. I mean, right now, Bryan Cranston is one of the best tools you have for that job.
What I'm wondering is maybe he might take Peter Weller's job. You know, the way that Peter Weller had that. I think he was the general or some class of commander in it.
Yeah.
Or will that go to one of the, and this is the other news, females being cast, right? Although right now it's reading as the president of the United Federation of Planets, another starship captain, and Bones' ex-wife, and these are the female roles that are being announced.
Well,
so it won't be one of them anyways.
Yeah.
Taking over Peter Weller's role, so it could be Cranston, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I wonder if they were to fill Peter Weller's role, would it be a good thing? Because it feels like that's ground they've already trod. And I think they want to be getting away from the ground that they've already walked on.
Well, someone's going to have to still fill the same void, because that's how the military works.
Well, it's how the military works, but it doesn't have to be something that they address in the film.
I suppose you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, ideally, this is going to be...
or maybe even in a more kind of in a more kind of a general way, that he fills the role of this senior person, or this other male lead that other people would look up to.
That could absolutely happen. I mean, in Star Trek 2, they were very much going for that government corruption sort of approach to things. Or secrets within the military, as opposed to Star Trek 1, which was very much some weird shit came out of space and this weird shit's going to destroy us.
Yeah.
But...
Well, I'm... Like, this probably, because I think I've changed my mind like a few times within this just single clip, but wouldn't they be in the middle of their voyage? Because of the... You remember in the original Star Trek? That they're on this trip through space.
I take it that was the titular Trek in Star Trek.
Yes, exactly, the Trek. Yeah. Well, and that basically at the end of Star Trek Into Darkness, that's what they've been assigned to.
Yeah.
So is it possible they'll meet Cranston there, or will Cranston be a member of staff, or this kind of thing, or do you think he'll be back on Earth?
Well, I don't think that they're tied to that, but at the same time, maybe they did sort of promise that.
I mean, it is about time that they started doing that. I think that's what everyone is feeling like.
Yeah, but I think I'm very much against the source material guiding where the new material is going to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I feel like that if they feel that the best movie that they can make out of Star Trek 3 doesn't involve them going on that trek just yet, then or that maybe they're coming back from that trek, maybe the Star Trek's engine broke down halfway past Jupiter.
The Enterprise's engine.
Is it the Enterprise?
The Enterprise is in the ship, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, the point being, despite all my rambling, basically, that just because this is what happened in the comic book or the TV source material or the film that you're rebooting, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to happen. It has to happen in the new material.
So you'd be perfectly fine with it still happening everything still happening on Earth or near Earth?
Absolutely, as long as they come up with a new concept. Because I mean, when you were talking about Bryan Cranston taking that Peter Weller role,
yeah, we don't want to go tread on old ground.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping for a different villain dynamic again. I mean, in the first film, we had that villain who just he hates everything about Earth. In the second film,
he loves everything about Earth and he wants to protect it.
Exactly. It's just he's prepared to do some real bad shit to get around to that.
So yeah,
and we'll see. In the third film, who knows?
We'll see where he fits on that scale of things. But the other, like I said, the three female characters being introduced. What do you think of that? Because again, basically President Starship Captain Bones' ex-wife.
Yeah, I feel like up till now they've had pretty weakly written female characters, and
yeah.
I think this gives them an opportunity to write the ship on that one. Well,
it would be interesting because we don't want it just be, well, maybe some people do want it being just Kirk and Spock the whole time, but for it to be, if Bones' ex-wife is in it and is involved in a major way, then he'll obviously have a much bigger role.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and Karl Urban really does knock it out of the park in that role.
Yeah, plus, I mean, if you think about it, at the end of Star Trek 2, we kind of had the apex of the bromance, where it's like where Spock saves Kirk's life.
Yeah.
And he goes into full-on psycho mode when his friend dies. I mean, they've sort of explored that relationship. It's like, these dudes are into each other as much as two dudes who are into women are going to be into another dude.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. But overall, I'm very excited about this news, and it does bode well for it, because I might not have been looking forward to it as much, but now hearing this stuff, I am looking forward to it a bit more.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston, you can throw him into anything basically, and he will make it better. This is great news. Moving on from nerd film casting news to nerd film casting news. Rose Byrne is going to be reprising her role as Moira MacTaggart in the upcoming X-Men sequel, X-Men Apocalypse. For anyone who remembers, Rose Byrne's character was sort of a scientist come CIA agent. She had her memory wiped at the end of First Class anyway. And she is going to be significant in this film according to the screenwriter Simon Kinberg. But Charles will be a stranger to her when they first meet.
What I'm wondering is maybe she'll be back on that island in Scotland, because in the comic books, or I'm not sure in the comic books, but in the animated series that she did own and work at this research facility, and it was a relaxation place for Charles Xavier.
Yep.
In Scotland, and but it was also a major location for one of the Apocalypse storylines.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, they can absolutely tip the hat to that. Plus, it doesn't seem disingenuous to the character as she's been portrayed up to now in the First Class trilogy.
Yeah.
So, speculation abound, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she'd still be with the FBI purely because of the way they reacted to the end of it.
Yeah.
In that she all she could remember was a kiss, and they were all kind of rolling their eyes like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, why send a woman to do a man's job?" Like,
Lionsgate is finally, after 6 long months, announcing that John Wick is going to have a sequel. Their CEO, John Fulltimer, made the announcement on Friday during a conference call with analysts, telling them, "We see John Wick as a multiple title action franchise. It's being written by the same writer who wrote the first one, and it's being developed by the two same directors who directed it, who have already said that they have some great ideas for where to take the action in this one."
So will this be done after Ninja Viking Warrior, whatever it was called?
I don't know. I guess it depends on Chris Pratt's schedule and the director's schedule. There are a million schedules floating around this one.
Any news if Keanu Reeves is going to reprise his role?
I hope so. If they're making a John Wick sequel,
of course,
I should hope it contains John Wick.
Fair point.
Possibly this time someone will murder his cat or something along those lines. Because
someone stubbed my toe. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I think what made John Wick for me, or one of the many things that made John Wick, was just the fact that it's, in a way, it's such a simple story about a man going on an insane, violent rampage, trying to avenge his dead puppy.
Lovely, adorable, really.
Exactly. But these two guys were saying that they had plenty more ideas for action scenes left over from the first John Wick, which I believe because they made their start in cinema as stuntmen.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I look forward to this on every level.
So lots of headshots then, I guess.
It's not really a headshot sort of film, although there are lots of headshots.
And moving on to our next story, Roland Emmerich has found his new writers for Stargate reboot, and he'll be using the same writers that he will for Independence Day 2, or Independence Day Forever, and that's Nicholas Wright and James A. Woods. And if you haven't heard of them, well, neither have I, because they haven't written anything before. They have acted and stuff, but I don't know how he pulled these out.
The only thing I could think of is that maybe these guys have scripts that have been stuck in the system. I mean,
and that has to be it, like.
Roland Emmerich, he has enough money and sway at this stage that he's not going to be hiring his nephew's friend who wrote something for a manual on drills once.
Well, what's interesting here is that Dean Devlin won't be returning, even though he wrote the original one, and he did write Independence Day. Now you could say also he wrote Godzilla 1998, and that was chronic. But
yeah,
it's a bit weird. As in, did they have some class of falling out, or is he just not bothered? Like,
well, looking at Dean Devlin's credits since, he's been doing TV.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything in. It'll be approaching 10 years when it comes out. Like,
yeah, it's. Devlin's output's patchy at best, and I mean Hollywood has changed so much since Stargate was written that
yeah, that's true. Actually,
the demands of writing the kind of blockbuster scale kind of thing that
this would probably have been higher up in my list, except for the fact that it's not that surprising that he's going to use the same writers for Stargate that he is going to use for Independence Day 2.
Yeah,
it's not that surprising at all.
Yeah, I think it's more surprising who these guys are, but just because we haven't seen the reason that Roland Emmerich believes in them doesn't mean that he hasn't seen something.
Yeah,
I mean, they could have some fantastic unproduced scripts. It's possible that he's basing Independence Day 2's or some of the ideas for off maybe unproduced material that these guys have lying around.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
And movies will be able to continue to be called films in the near future. Well, most of them, as Kodak has penned a new contract with Hollywood. So movies will still be used physical film as opposed to, digital recordings.
I wonder, did Kodak have to actually pay them to use film? Because it seems like digital is after getting really, really fucking good.
Yeah, digital is getting more and more advanced by the minute.
Exactly. Plus, digital is so much cheaper as well that I find it difficult to think, how did Hollywood rationalise this? I mean, is Kodak actively paying them to use the film? Because digital cameras are lighter, they're easier to use, you don't have to reload them as often.
Yeah, that's definitely a serious factor. I mean, holding on to films is like great for nostalgia and all this kind of thing, and physically you actually have the film, but there's no real actual applied purpose for reason,
Yeah, I fail to see the rationale behind it. I'm sure that Hollywood has some fantastic reason for this. It might not even involve a check with 1 billion zeros on it.
Well, it might be purely because so many directors actually do prefer to use it. I still don't know why.
Yeah, a lot of them have been switching recently. I mean, they've been getting over that grain look, and I think the public has as well. As it's become more widely used, that it's not that digital itself has become more refined, it's that we have reacted to the technology, that our idea of what a film is supposed to look like has changed somewhat. And I'd assume that digital has been getting closer to replicating that film look as well, for the directors who still want that.
That makes sense.
And for anyone who studied To Kill a Mockingbird in their school days,
most of us, I'm guessing.
Yep, you're about to be hit with a whole bunch of nostalgia, because Harper Lee is releasing the sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird.
But is it actually a direct sequel, like?
It's a direct sequel. It was actually written before To Kill a Mockingbird.
Really?
Yeah.
So is there a name for it?
It is called... Go Set a Watchman. But what happened was that Harper Lee actually sent this novel into her editor based on Scout when she's grown up. Scout's the character of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
And her editor told her that he wanted to see a book that was based more on the flashbacks that were in the novel.
Oh, so it's kind of extracted from it, like, effectively.
To Kill a Mockingbird was extracted from this book, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently I say present in the loosest sense of the term, storyline in this, was that Scout goes home to visit her father and to try to understand his attitude towards society and her own feelings about the place where she was born and spent her childhood.
So do you think this will be made into a film? I assume that's why you're bringing it up in this section.
Yeah, I mean, this is future film watch.
Yeah.
Sooner or
watch
later.
The spot.
Yeah. If this comes out and if it's any good, someone's going to pick it up and make a film out of it.
It has to be done.
Just because a To Kill a Mockingbird sequel. I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird is absolutely iconic. The next story is a little more of a plea. Hollywood, please leave Japan the fuck alone. And just to tell you what prompted this, Netflix is developing Nintendo's Legend of Zelda as a live-action series.
Okay, so my reaction of cool is not cool.
It's like, what's Hollywood going to do with this? Apparently, the concept of this is to develop a scripted version of the fantasy games that would revolve around the elfin character of Link and his quest to save Princess Zelda in a tamer, Game of Thrones-like universe.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones like Legend of Zelda.
Exactly, yeah. Which, I don't know, I can't think of two things that come together less well apart from the concept of princesses and kings and such.
I mean, it's got the fantasy thing, but it's kind of, it's more of a children's game, I mean, it's designed to be cartoony looking, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. The thing is that the plot of the Zelda games was so vague that to hang any sort of plot like this on it, it feels really weird. And it feels like they're just looking for a name to hang on their own Game of Thrones.
It's certainly a strange one, and I'll give them that.
Yeah. I don't mind this coming out if it's actually any good.
Yeah, that's fair.
But please leave my childhood the fuck alone. In Nicholas Winding Rain news, Keanu Reeves and Christian Hendricks are set to join the director's next film, The Neon Demon. A female-driven horror. It's starring Elle Fanning, and it also has Jenna Malone of The Hunger Games. And that's all that's come out of the Neon Demon camp so far. But this is Winding Rain's follow-up to Only God Forgives. Which
Interesting.
pretty much got reviewed as complete dog shit.
Ah.
And that was the follow-up to Drive.
Which was actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, which rightly got reviewed as fucking awesome. So I think this is make or break time for Nicholas Winding Rain and Western audiences.
I kind of really like the look that he went for with Drive.
Yeah, this could be anywhere on the spectrum from train wreck to masterpiece. And for comedy fans out there, Seth Rogen and Zac Efron are re-teaming for Neighbours 2.
So what? They're at the opposite sides of the street.
I've no idea.
It's
Seth Rogen. I guess he's generally a good barometer for quality in a film.
Yeah, that's true.
Get your horsewhips out for this next story. We've got more news on 50 Shades Grey, which will feature approximately 20 minutes of sex scenes.
Now, just to clarify, actually, how many minutes is the film?
The film's 100 minutes. Which
so about a fifth of your actual film is going to have the sex that everyone's creaming themselves over.
Yeah, like 80% of this film is going to be plot, and then 20% is going to be horsewhips and handcuffs, I assume.
Lovely. I thought it was supposed to be closer to 50-50 in theory, you know?
No, I've been reading the plot of this, and there's actually a lot of similarities between this and Twilight.
That's horrifying in so many levels.
Yeah. But moving on from the length of Christian Grey's sex scenes, the sneak peek for the hardware store scene, which is apparently pretty iconic, showed up this week. And if you're into a guy shopping for rope and masking tape and cable ties,
with a wink, nod, is it?
With some, I don't know whether to call it awkward flirting, just because of the way the character's built. It might not necessarily be that awkward. But that being said, if that's your sort of thing, there'll be a link down in the show notes for this video.
And The Walking Dead aired a 2-minute trailer or sneak peek this week, as it was a very intense 2 minutes. And Fergal, you saw it. What did you think? You don't really care, do you?
I don't.
You don't really watch The Walking Dead.
I watched the first 2 minutes of the episode and I was confused as all hell.
We see the farm, and it's very much implied that they're burying Beth at the farm anyway. That's the implication I got from it. And it looks like Rick's group, or whatever you want to call it, will be heading to Richmond. And that's basically where Noah's group is supposed to be.
Yep, and for people who know about as much about The Walking Dead as I do, the show's got zombies in it.
This could be interesting anyway, and but it does look about exactly what you'd expect from the Walking Dead trailer. Now, whether they actually get to the Alexandria safe zone in this season or beyond, it's unknown. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest, because that would still mean if they got there now, it would progress the series. But at the same time, if they delayed it, then they'd be able to fit in more stuff along the way. And anyway, in other trailer news, Magic Mike XXL teaser trailer release, which I'm sure Fergal's got something to say about.
Yeah, this trailer is all about the dance, basically. It's Channing Tatum. He's after taking up that furniture job. He's finally getting around to making custom furniture. He's there grinding a chair leg, when all of a sudden he just can't help but break out into dance. And Jesus fucking this guy dance.
That's a beautiful sentiment, really.
The trailer's a minute and a half, and at least half of that is him dancing.
Okay.
It's Channing Tatum dancing. Oh, also at one stage he uses a chair leg as his cock. I'm very excited for this film about a convention for male strippers. Let us leave it at that.
Okay then. Netflix's Marvel's Daredevil trailer has also been released, and it was pretty interesting actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean it was stylish.
Yeah, it was very well. It was stylishly done, and it had all the, it didn't feel as goofy as Daredevil with Ben Affleck in it.
Yeah.
And so it did feel better in it. But to be fair, we still haven't seen the Daredevil suit.
Yeah, I don't
But
think.
to be fair, it was the first trailer, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think that anyone was going to make the mistake of going as goofy as the
Yeah.
Ben Affleck film, especially now that we've got a whole bunch of evidence to confirm that's not quite what the public wants from their comic book films and TV series. But I think the biggest question that was answered a little by this trailer, I guess, was can Netflix handle an action series of this scale? And just based on what we saw in it, yes. I mean, it's hard to tell from a trailer, but nothing.
Yeah, they're definitely going for the underground idea, which is of course which was a big thing in the original Daredevil comics and stuff on that.
Yeah. Plus, I didn't see anything that was horribly cheap looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is the sort of things you're looking for in production like this. So, I guess Netflix has been putting all that internet streaming money to good use in developing their own stock TV programs.
Yeah, it looks pretty solid.
Well, except Netflix programs, I guess they are now. And the new Fast and Furious 7 trailer dropped. Jason Statham was menacing. Vin Diesel talked about family. There were big car stunts. Paul Walker's showed up in scenes that had been filmed before he passed away, I assume.
I assume so. Jesus.
Yeah. And I can't see how the film can emerge with him still as a major character without being horribly
Out of place.
Yeah, but maybe they found a good way around that.
It's not like it's a secret or something. Everyone knows that he died. So,
Yeah.
you can't exactly say, oh, don't worry, he'll be showing up in the next one. What? Huh?
Yeah, but at the same time, because they weren't planning for him to die, it's...
I assume they
address that.
I assume that's why they rewrote the script, and because that's why they took longer.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. Despite having only recently started filming, the Steve Jobs film called Steve Jobs has already been given its release date of the 9th of October this year. And that's interesting, isn't it? And
yeah, it's interesting because they're plopping it like right at the start of when award season films start.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, as in, like, they couldn't be any more obvious. But to be fair, it's if it is kind of fitting for Apple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got Michael Fassbender. It's got Danny Boyle. It's a biopic. It's they couldn't bait awards
and
any
it's got
harder.
an script, of course.
Yeah, they could only bait awards harder by sending it in a concentration camp, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And there was also, of course, the Point Break release date.
Yeah, which
Reboot, whatever. I'm not entirely sure that it needed a reboot. I'm not entirely sure they needed to go back to it, but whatever.
Yeah, Point Break was fine just the way it was. But what's interesting here is they're after moving it to the Christmas release slot that they just took off Mission Impossible 5 to move that to high summer.
Is it the same distribution company? Same studio, like?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically what's happened here is they're after pulling Mission Impossible 5 out of the path of the Star Wars train, and now they're pushing Point Break in front of it.
You see, I don't know if this means that they have more confidence in Point Break or less confidence in it. As in, are they saying, is it basically a lamb to the slaughter?
Yeah, I think they generally tend to put films that they don't have that much confidence in around a Christmas slot.
I mean, yeah.
The Interview had that slot originally. It's like, I think it's like mid-tier films. It's like, meh. It's like,
exactly.
oh, fuck it, we'll give it Christmas. Because who the fuck goes to the cinema on Christmas?
I'm pretty sure there are people who go. Okay,
Is this a real thing? Like,
sure,
why
not?
Can you get turkey with your popcorn?
I'm not sure how it expands, right? In other news, and our final little thing before we talk about Ex-Machina, we NBC have given renewals to Blacklist, Chicago Fire, Grimm, Chicago PD, and Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Anyway, this is very good news. Even though I haven't actually seen Blacklist, I've heard it's very good, and it's definitely on a list somewhere for me to watch it eventually. But it'll be moving on to its third season, and so far it's been very well received. It's James Spader doing basically his best Hannibal Lecter impression.
Yeah, which is exciting because Joss Whedon believes in James Spader,
and of course he's just got this brilliantly eerie yet fascinating voice.
Yeah, he's he's a strange actor. He's always had this sort of weird energy that makes him very intriguing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, Law and Order will be going into it. The Special Victims Unit, I should say, will be going into its 17th season, which is impressive.
Yeah.
And now we're going to review Ex-Machina. So, the thing is that it came out in Ireland in January, but it's not coming out in America and most other places, or not most other places that aren't within the British Isles, until April area.
Yeah,
so this is interesting. Like we get the drop on y'all.
Yeah, it's like now you know how it feels, America. Donald Gleason is playing a young
computer program.
Yeah, he's a computer programmer. He's talented, and he wins a lottery to go to his boss's sort of. I hesitate to call it a mansion, just because it's so Spartan.
It's basically this giant estate that's like
It's his boss is a very rich guy. He
owns the internet.
Yeah, this is the guy who owns the internet. His estate takes 2 hours to fly over one way, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and his house, despite looking like a rusty piece of crap from the outside, is a technological sort of wonderland on the inside.
It's like future tech kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah. And perhaps the most impressive part of all the technology he has inside there is that he has created an AI.
Yeah. And called Ava.
Ava, yeah.
And the thing is that the director actually said, I think it was the director actually said that it's the kind of way that it's in the near future in such a way that if Apple or Google were to come out and say today that they'd created artificial intelligence, we'd be surprised, but not that surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it does feel grounded still in the world.
Yeah, very much so. And they do deliberately go out of their way at the very start just to show that office setting.
Yeah.
To give us the idea that this guy, he's being plucked out of the everyday world into this kind of weirdness going on with this technology in the middle of this basically nowhere.
Getting into the actual plot, though, I mean, he basically has to perform the Turing test. Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's called
the Turing test.
The Turing test, or Turing test, is that it's traditionally when a human interacts with an AI, and the AI passes the test if the human cannot realize that the AI is an AI. In fact, he still thinks the human thinks it's talking to another human.
Yeah.
But in this, we have it kind of flipped around in that the human knows they're talking to an AI. It's clearly obvious that it's in fact a robot and all this, but he has to judge whether she has a consciousness or it has a consciousness.
Which is kind of it's a tricky question, because how can you even judge whether another person has consciousness?
And basically, he's there for a week, is the kind of idea.
Yeah, he's got a week to decide whether or not this robot is conscious. So that is the basic premise, and it's executed in sort of it's in sci-fi thriller territory, I'd say.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be more kind of horror, but based on the trailer, but it wasn't. It was claustrophobic, but it wasn't horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there were elements of horror in there. There were certain images that were they would be entirely at home in the horror genre, but it definitely had. It was that thriller aspect that was stronger to it. That sort of there's an interplay between Donald Gleason and the robot.
There's kind of there's a bit of a mystery going on. Is the kind of idea. But also I thought the three or four, I suppose disputably you could say four, actors in the film were fantastic. I thought.
Absolutely,
and the chemistry between them all was very good.
Yeah, I think we've got to give the crown to Oscar Isaac in this one.
Yeah, he was very, He was fantastic.
His charisma is just absolutely massive. He's playing a sort of the eccentric billionaire is the trope, but he really makes it his own.
He does it very well, and at the same time you got the contrasting thing of Donald Gleeson, who's very much, he's just one of us, just another regular guy.
Yeah,
he's a very intelligent regular guy, but he's nevertheless his priorities and his morals aren't as weird.
Yeah, and that's all very well portrayed through the way the performances are.
I think the first scene in which the two of them meet is actually really well done.
Yeah, it's just Gleeson is constantly shown through that scene being out of his element, and especially so when he meets Oscar Isaac's character, because at that moment he's face to face with this legend, someone he admires. And there's just this...
Yeah, it's made abundantly clear that he does really admire him.
Yeah, and he just has this starry-eyed look, where
exactly.
I think for all the fact he's flown out to a clearing in the jungle, he has to knock on the door of this strange house that looks like it's made of corrugated iron from the outside. And once he gets in there, he's face to face with this sort of... this modern day monster. Basically, Donald Gleeson absolutely nails the deer in the headlights.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a brilliant metaphor there. But I also thought that Alicia Vikander was very good in this role, in the role of Eva. Because it was very difficult for her. It must have been a task, I'd say, to play such a role that was, had no sexuality and yet did have sexuality.
Yeah, well, first off, I don't think just because the robot, it's despite the fact that it's all made of plastic and metal, I think there still is a sort of an innocent sexuality being portrayed there. Yeah, it's her in what we're seeing, or what is being portrayed to us, is her innocent exploration of these first feelings that he's encountering. There's a lot of ambiguity to the character. There's very much a dual nature to the character, where on the one hand she's trying to portray a robot, and she's trying to portray that stiffness to the character.
But at the same time, it has to have a consciousness.
Yeah, it has to have a consciousness, and it has to react she has to express while simultaneously feeling like she's not used to expression.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, actually.
Yeah, which it's very difficult space she's walking through, but she absolutely nails it.
You got the daughter-father relationship going on there as well.
Yeah,
to an extent, between Oscar Isaac's character and Eva.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like.
Yeah, one thing I was surprised by is that we don't see that much interaction between the two when you think about it.
We don't, but when we do see it, it's meaningful. But I think the idea was that you didn't see much interaction because she was having this test. So, as in, if he was going out to test her, and then after every test he came down to talk to her, it would it would be different, like.
Yeah, well, I can see. I'm like, you're thinking that he's interfering with the tests
to an extent.
Yeah,
like,
if that had been the case,
if he was doing it constantly, like.
I don't feel like there's any control either, where he's being isolated from her. Or I don't think that was part of the test.
No, it's not. But it's as in he's consciously not standing in the same room as them.
Yeah, I think
the way he watches camera roll and sit in the same room as them.
Yeah, and it's like. I think the point is that it's a father-daughter dynamic, but it's a very messed up.
Yeah, it's completely messed
dynamic.
up. I mean, to an extent, there are traces of it, but it's still wacky.
Yeah, in a way, he's like an absentee father, but also in another way, there's a sense of attachment, and I think ownership's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, it is ownership.
It's he feels that he has ownership over this consciousness, and that's why the dynamic between them, whenever it comes up, is so bloody creepy.
Yeah.
But moving beyond sort of performances and the inter-character dynamics, I feel like it just works as a really solid thriller as well.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's sufficiently sort of... it's weird in that the twists aren't a focal point. It's
I think that rather than being like a sharp turn to your right or to your left, it's more a case of it gradually kind of slopes, and it's clearly there, but it's not what drives it.
Yeah, I feel the lead for the way that the film turns out is very much buried within the film.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing feels unnatural, and I think it does raise some very interesting kind of talking points.
I think it's more of like a gradual kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that it's gradually revealed what it is. It's a series of twists, but it's a series of non-twists. You know, it's. You know.
Yeah, I think to a larger extent as well,
it's a natural progression, like.
It shows the way that they've approached all the characters, and it is a very interesting approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I can't say any more without spoiling the film, really.
Yeah, that's the thing, we're in very dangerous territory with that kind of thing.
But there are, just in terms of the way all the characters have been drawn to interact, and just to have their layers peeled back through the film.
I think it's kind of, you always knew when you were watching it that it's inevitable that such and such a thing, or that something will happen, I should say, after when the final test is done.
Yeah, I mean,
when the final section is done.
I feel like when you're watching the film, you know that either A, B, or C is going to happen. The interesting thing is finding out how we get to A, B, or C, and how it's approached when we get there. And in both cases, I think the film passes. And I really liked it. Special effects, top drawer. The film looks absolutely phenomenal. There's some really beautiful mounted photography. All of the indoor stuff looks futuristic is the word I'd use, but quietly futuristic.
Yeah, as in it's within the near future, I think, is the idea.
Yeah.
As in, he's Oscar Isaac's character, he's the owner of this company called, I think it's Blue Book it's called. And it's basically what would happen, I'd imagine, if Apple and Google married. Basically, it's their love child, maybe.
Yeah, I'm like, if I had to rate this on a scale, I'd give it an 8. I don't think it's like there isn't a massive amount to delve into.
I'd actually agree with you there, an 8.
Yeah, but it's just a very well made, sort of easily digestible thriller.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah, it's
there is some thinking room involved, but not a lot, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean there are talking points as opposed to massive philosophical conundrums, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much ambiguity there. And but despite that, fantastic film and well worth checking out.
So I guess that's an 8 out of 10 for both of us. So
yeah, consensus.
Yeah. So definitely well worth watching.
So moving on to our last and a kind of somber piece of news. Rooster Teeth animation expert Monty Oum passed away this week after complications caused by a allergic reaction during a minor surgery. He was the creative force behind Ruby. He was the he was the guy they brought on board who was sort of expanded the action scenes of Red vs. Blue. And the thing about the guy, just as a creative artist, he was. I'm not quite sure that we have anyone else in the world working like him, because what he was doing was within the medium of animation. He was sort of creating without letting the physics or the physical limitations of the characters get in the way of a good time. I think the idea was just to make everything look fantastic. I mean, if you look at Ruby, he built the characters' designs out of very simple building blocks. These sort of primary, in a way, even though they weren't primary colors, like everything has a few different color tones just to give a contrast. Everything looked very beautiful, which was a lot of the same way that he approached plot, which was to build everything out of very simple elements so that everything was easily digestible. But the thing that I'll remember for most, at least, was just those action scenes, because they were just so different from anything else that's being created right now, and we have genuinely lost someone who was making something different and who was making the world better. And that's my obituary to the guy. And I guess at this time out, I and I assume Owen as well, extend our condolences to his family and his friends.
Of course.
And the people at Rooster Teeth. Because we've lost something very special with his passing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sad loss. And unfortunately, we have to end on that somber note. I thank you for listening to the Idiot's Odyssey episode 6. I've been Owen Murphy, and you can follow me on Twitter at OwenM1990.
My name is Fergal O'Connor, and if you want to Twitter me, you can find me at Interspammer.
And you can also follow the show on both Facebook, Twitter, and that's at Idiot's Odyssey. And you can also email us at idiotsodysseypodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on our website, idiotsodyssey.com.
Yeah, so basically just Google Idiot's Odyssey and you're going to track us down.
And thank you for listening.